In this section, you will learn some basics of a version control tool called Git. Git is currently the most popular implementation of a distributed version control system. It was created by a person named Linus Torvalds, who is probably well known for his Linux kernel development. He created Git as a distributed version control system to collaborate with other kernel developers worldwide. Some of the features of Git, like I mentioned earlier, it is a distributed version control system and a very popular one at that. For those of you who need to know what is version control, it is a system that is used to track history of a collection of files, usually source code. Every version captures a snapshot of the files at that point in time, and it is stored in a specific location called the repository. The version control system captures the changes, who made the changes, and when, along with some details regarding as to why it was made. Of course, those details need to be given by the person who made the changes. Now, a local version control system usually captures changes on a computer, and a central version control system captures changes on a server. Unlike these, in a distributed version control system, the full repository resides on both the developer's machine as well as in a central hub. So developers can work on the code at the same time and later sync it with the central repository. So there is no lockout situation for any developer. Now coming back to Git, it is free and open source. It is also very easy to learn. It has both GUI based tools as well as command line access to the repository. It also has a very strong community for support and learning. Now, let us learn some concepts of Git. Git, being a distributed version control system, each user will have complete copy of the complete source code on his computer. The user can copy an existing repository, which is known in Git terminology as cloning. Every clone contains the full history of the collection of files, and a cloned repository has the same functionality as the original repository. Users or developers can make changes to this full version and then commit to his local repository. Every repository can then exchange versions of the files with other repositories by transporting these to a central repository. Now this brings us to the second point, the three states of Git that make all this magic possible: the working directory, the staging area, and the repository. Now, the working directory is the area which the developer creates on his local computer. He can create files, delete files, and make changes to the existing files there. The files will not be available on Git for tracking. However, Git knows about these files. Next is the staging area. This is the area to which developers add the working directory files and folders. Here on, Git starts monitoring these files. If you do not want Git to monitor any of these files, you can simply remove them from the staging area. Next is the repository. This is where the developer commits the staging area files or folders to the Git repository. That makes it part of the version control system. Apart from these three states, there is a fourth state. It's called the remote repository. This remote repository is hosted on a Git-based central hub like GitHub. Developers can push their local repositories to this area for collaboration with other developers in their project. Next, we come to the concept of master and branches. All changes that the developer makes to the code will be part of a branch. The default branch is the master branch. The developer can also create more branches from the master branch to work on independent changes to the code. Each branch needs to be named differently from other branches so that the commit can be issued separately. The branch changes can also be later on merged into the master. Now that you know some basics of Git, we can start with some hands-on examples. In the next lectures, you will be introduced to Git command line and GitHub. After that, you will learn how Jenkins can be set up for continuous integration with Git. Thank you.